Awesome. Welcome everyone to another exciting episode of shOPS Talk. We actually have a lovely returning guest now. We've had Ben on before and excited to catch up with him again. As always, for those that have not joined before, it's your first time jumping on shOPS Talk, to give you a quick little rundown of what we do and why we do it. This is a partnership that we've had with Salesforce for coming on a year now. And the entire mentality of shOPS Talk is to help elevate the continued rise and growth of the operations community. So we're all seeing and feeling the success of RevOps all across the world. We'll talk a little bit about that as well today, but again, we don't get to have these webinars without our fantastic sponsors from Salesforce helping us out every single time. So appreciate them for all their help and support over the last months. And it's crazy that we're coming up on a year of this whole program. So that being said, obviously we have a phenomenal guest join us today, Ben McCarthy. Again, so happy to have you on again, my friend. I'll let you do a quick introduction of yourself, and then we'll get things going.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you very much for Brad and Sonar, Wisdom Ops Salesforce, for inviting me on again. It's a pleasure to be here. So yeah, nice to meet everyone. My name is Ben. I've got 10 years experience in the Salesforce ecosystem. I've worked in kind of most roles. So I've worked as an end user, an admin at an end user. I've worked for an ISV, what we're going to be talking about today. I've set up a Salesforce consultancy, and then kind of throughout all that, I've been running a blog called salesforceben.com, which is probably what I'm most known for. But now I just do that full time. So just get to write about, talk about Salesforce all the time, which is great.
We genuinely live the dream with the worlds that we get to work in and the customers we get to support and the environments we get to work in every day. I'd be remiss if I didn't say it. I said it last time. I can tell you confidently, I wouldn't be here without a lot of the knowledge that Ben has shared over the years. Even in my Salesforce journey and my operations journey, salesforceben.com has been my go-to for learning insights, trying to figure out how the heck to go take certification trainings and things like that. So if you haven't already checked out Salesforce Ben, by all means, please do so. You will be pleasantly surprised with all of the wealth of knowledge that him and his team share on a constant basis. So that being said,
it's very kind of you. Thank you, Brad. At least we've helped one person. So
I can objectively tell you, you've helped me and a lot of folks on our team, especially the folks that go through getting certifications. So
that's good to know.
That being said, we've got a lot to unpack today. So the topic that we're really going to discover today is really understanding the ISV world a little bit more in depth. We've been familiar with it from a Salesforce perspective, and we're all very familiar with the App Exchange and how quickly and easy it is for us to find ISVs. And really, as we see this ecosystem continue to grow, this is one of the main ways that you, as an operations professional, a Salesforce professional, get to find new tools, new solutions for you and your team. But we have to unpack it. And I think in order to do that, we likely need to start at the very beginning. We won't leave anybody high and dry. We know acronyms can be confusing sometimes. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about what the heck is an ISV and a little bit of the backstory to how this entire thing got started. Ben, I'll turn it over to you. I know you know the history of this way better than I do, of course. So in your definition, what is an ISV and how did this whole thing start?
Yeah, sure. So an ISV, first off, it stands for Independent Software Vendor. Also could be called, App Exchange apps, Salesforce apps, and essentially they are a marketplace of apps that you can bolt onto your Salesforce instance to extend the functionality. So of course, most comparisons when I'm first talking to someone who's a new Salesforce customer is comparing it to the App Store on your iPhone, Google Play on your Android, something like that. And of course, marketplaces are a fairly new thing. And I don't claim to be a complete expert on them, but in my own personal life, and I'm sure a lot of yours as well, when the iPhone or smartphones came out in general, and you can install apps on them, that was pretty game changing. And the same with Salesforce. I think they released it in 2005, 2006, something like that. But quite an interesting thing is actually the App Store, which is, of course, Apple's marketplace's name, was actually copyrighted originally by Mark Benioff, CEO of Salesforce, and gifted to Steve Jobs for all the great work he did as a mentor over the years. So that was pretty neat. But there was a time before marketplaces, which is a bit crazy to think now.
It is. I can almost guarantee you, most of the folks listening, and I remember you told me this as we were prepping, I actually didn't know that part of it, that it was gifted over from Benioff to Jobs. And so, when you think about the origination and the impact that just a marketplace has in perspective to what we do in the Salesforce ecosystem, but now really how the world operates. We all sit here and have our iPhones and we're ready to roll with them. So, we have a lot to thank for, for how ISVs got started on that side. Kind of moving along as we start to think about the landscape of ISVs. Like I said, we know it started small. We know with the intentions of why it started, but it's grown massively. And, we have probably a couple of different types of categories now for ISVs. And candidly speaking, we're doing this September of 2021. I'm going to mark my calendar a year from now. You and I are just going to catch up and figure out what this landscape looks like even 365 days from now, because it's constantly expanding and changing. But when you think of the categories, what type of ISVs are available? How would you think about categorizing them?
Yeah, sure. So I think definitely now has been the most exciting time for ISVs, no doubt. The amount of ways that people like Sonar are coming up to extend the Salesforce platform is ingenious. So I would kind of, I wrote a post the other day and I kind of categorized in some of my favorite ones, or the most that have some of the most impact. And it's things like, from working at Conga in the ISV days, DocGen is always going to be a love of mine. There's so many use cases you can do with document generation, adding that on with e-signature and contract management. And, that's something that most companies can pick up. Then, of course, you've got form builders to send out to your customers or users to collect data that from a browser and directly goes into your Salesforce. DevOps is obviously huge now. So many different DevOps customers. So there's some of the main ones, I would say, some of the most exciting ones that I find anyway. And of course, telephony as well. Telephony integration is pretty game changing as well.
Absolutely. And I think the cool thing that you and I both realized, and we see it almost as a response from the ecosystem we're in. When I say we're going to look up in 365 days and see what category might be leading, we're all constantly changing the way we do business all day, every day. And so we're not going to be surprised when we may see more ISVs that are more into video chats like this. I'm just kind of speculating here, but I feel like the app exchange market and just ISVs in general are always going to be catering to the needs of customers. Stop me if you've heard that one before, but anybody who's creating a product should probably be having that mindset. And we're going to see this evolution continue. One thing that we also mentioned before too was Salesforce Labs. Obviously, we'll kind of double click into it a little bit, but another great way to see how things are starting and evolving over time, right?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I mean, you've obviously got Salesforce Labs, and for those that don't know, those are Salesforce apps that are created by Salesforce employees. So they're usually very high quality. They fill some of the gaps in the Salesforce platform, and as Brad said, they're completely free as well. And I think to kind of also add is there are a lot of, obviously a lot of paid apps on the App Exchange, and those are perhaps some of the most impactful, but a lot of free ones as well that are created by Salesforce professionals who just want to help. Quite a lot of consultancies now are doing it for a bit more promotional awareness, which is great because you get a free app and they get what they want, some bit of recognition. So yeah, loads of apps to explore for free as well.
Absolutely. And for those even joining that are in the ISV market or starting to dip their toe into the ISV market, labs are a great place to start. Again, like Ben said, you can get your name out there, you get the recognition. If you're building a company and you want to expand into additional markets, additional areas, verticals, industries, it's a great place to get your name out there. Thinking about, again, a lot of the folks that are going to be on this call are going to be coming from a lot of different walks of life. We probably have a lot of Salesforce consultants that'll be watching this, probably have a lot of ops, Salesforce admins, internal folks, other ISVs. Potentially million, if not billion-dollar question. When we typically go about implementing an ISV, I think as a customer, and especially I talk to our customers all day, every day, Brad, what app should I use for this? Is there something new for that? Kind of golden rule about buying software. Have a problem that software needs to solve first. Don't just go buy software to go buy software. Well, I'll leave my soapbox there, but we've all been in conversations about that. But when we think about the right time to leverage an ISV, every company's growing at different paces. What comes to mind when you think of, all right, here's the time where I really need to start thinking about bringing someone or a platform or an ISV inside like this?
Yeah, I mean, there always comes a time. I mean, it's basically like being reactive versus proactive. Problems crop up all the time, and then you have to go out and find a solution for that problem. But I think it's a really good idea to get clued up on what apps are out there, because then when you find them, you can kind of plug a problem before it becomes too major. I remember when I worked at Conga and then, I worked at an end user for an admin and then moved to Conga. I actually wrote a really long email to the end user because there was so many use cases I've spotted for Conga with this end user. And I felt a bit bad because I didn't know about Conga before then, and I've obviously missed the trick because they could have done well with them. They didn't respond to my email, by the way, so didn't make sale there. But that's just an example. If I had known about it, I would have probably been able to do a better job for the end user that I was working with at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you mentioned it, and we'll double click into it real quick. The proactive versus reactive side of it is so important. And we've had a lot of different conversations with a lot of different folks before of picking the right tech stack, picking the right apps, engaging with the right ISVs. It is I'll say it's an art, not a science. And I think a lot of the times where so many customers have to be forward thinking, I might have an issue right now that I need to solve. Hands down, we can all see where these issues come from, how we might resolve them with tech. But I think some of the folks that I've worked with in the past, and especially a lot of our customers who are the most forward thinking, like, I don't mind solving this problem for tomorrow. I know this is going to be a gnarly case for us. A good example of it, you're kind of thinking about the Conga side of things and DocGen side of things. If you're a rapidly growing company and you're currently using the out of the box Salesforce quotes, and you're starting to realize like, all right, I got to start stretching these products and price books a little bit in different ways. I need a little bit more flexibility. You might not have that full headache quite yet, but you can see it coming. So go ahead and start forward thinking about, all right, what solutions are out there for me to actually engage with and do. It's not too far off topic from when we talk about hiring for operations teams in general. Historically, it's always been a reactive measure. We've got to 50 or 75 or 100 employees or 200 or 400 or 1,000. You're like, man, I am short-staffed over here on the tech side on who's managing my go-to-market technology. So kind of keep those same veins in line. As you continue to increase what your tech stack looks like and you engage with ISVs, think about the people that you need to actually keep the lights on, the wheel spinning, and vice versa. So, again, you probably don't want to think about it if you're a very early company, sub 20 employees. You don't want to think about it too early. You probably still are getting your ducks in a row from a go-to-market perspective and trying to get product market fit and trying to get everything figured out. But just be aware of early warning signs that, all right, now might be the time for me to go and buy, not build. There's a ton of solutions out there. You just have to take the time to do the right research for them, which candidly kind of moves on to the next part of the discussion with, some of the best practices that we want to think about for selecting the right ISVs to grow your Salesforce org strategically. And we'll double click into that strategically. We don't want to be the haphazard, let me go buy every app out there or download it. You'll quickly find some limits that you're going to run into, which we'll unpack. But yeah, when you think about the best practices for selecting that right ISV for your team, what comes to mind on your side?
Yeah, so I think it's like selecting most software, and as you were kind of alluding to there, it gets quite easy to get a bit trigger happy. It's very, very easy to install AppExchange apps into your org, and I remember installing some into production, and I was like, nah, it'll be fine. Like, it's a small app, it doesn't do much, but do not do that. But going through the proper cycle, selecting. Doing your research, installing in sandbox, testing, getting user feedback. And some apps are going to take a lot more time than others. Some are a lot more strategic, and others just don't require that. If it's an admin, a backend kind of thing, it's not going to require the same amount of comprehensive testing with users. So that's something that I think you should do. And because so many apps, I'm pretty much every single app out there, or every single type of app, will have a free trial available. So you can get things installed, you can get things working, making sure the app is right for you, and just ensure you're making a good decision. And that's why so many apps on the AppExchange, I've very, very rarely seen ones which don't perform, because there are free trials. And if they don't perform in the free trial, people aren't going to buy them. So, you've got a good shot to get a decent app.
Absolutely. And I think it's important. Roll your sleeves up. drive the car before you buy it. Funny enough, we were on with a customer, and obviously we run a free trial program. And I was like, yeah, you would never buy a car before, taking it for a test drive. And one of them was like, actually, I just bought my car on Carvana, and it arrived at my house. It's like, damn, never mind. I kind of shot myself in the foot on that example. But typically speaking, to your point, most of these apps you're going to really be able to get your hands on, and at least for a short period of time, whether it be 14 days or 30 days. Every company runs trial motions differently. But it's a really good way to make sure it's the right solution for you. And I think as a company as well, for folks that are ISVs on this call that are thinking about doing it the right way, put your money where your mouth is. Let your product speak for itself. Make sure that you are there to support the customers that are going through that journey and that trial motion, which we'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, the market is actually shifting a good bit to this. We see all of the ways companies are running PLG, like product-led growth plays and freemium models. It's one, because the stability of their product is amazing, but also two, again, product first, customer first. Like, go solve those problems. If your platform really does solve the problems that it's insane it's doing with all of your marketing that you're doing with it, you're gonna be in good shape. But don't be scared to put your product out there to make sure that people can use it and feel the success of it from their side. So I know personally we've seen that with one of our customers. Mural is doing that right now. As a matter of fact, where they just completely said, all right, here for the first, I believe, 5 murals that you get, everything is for free, and they're seeing so much growth on that side. I know you've kind of said that same example to a certain degree with Congo, right?
Yeah. So, I think, I don't want to keep picking on Congo. I'm not getting any commission for mentioning them, but I'm sure all DocGen apps, they have this free trial where you can get your documents set up and working before you make a purchase. Which just means it's extremely low risk for the end user, and usually the app will or the pre-sales engineers or whoever will guide you through that. Customer support will answer your questions, so you're not just alone either. So it's a very good idea to get these things installed and just give it a go and see what you can automate.
Absolutely. And again, a lot of that starts really right there in the App Exchange. So we'll double click into it very quickly. We'll talk about the App Exchange itself. We kind of talked about the origin of Benioff creating and handed off to Jobs, but we know about how it started. Just a very quick couple of seconds on how to leverage it. When it comes to looking on the App Exchange, doing your different searches, any advice that you have there as far as for folks that are starting into it for the first time, because it can be a little intimidating, I'll have to say.
Yeah, it can. I think over the years, Salesforce has changed how they kind of split things, and they've done it quite well now, where they split it into industry, I think, categories, and then the actual product categories itself. So it can be overwhelming, but I think it's got better over the years in terms of categorization, and also there's a lot of information on there, videos and screenshots to get a feel for the app. But recently, something they've done that is really cool is added chat to a lot of these apps as well. And I think there's a little kind of icon that says chat next to the app tile, like when you're on the page. And then if you click on that, you can directly speak to a salesperson or pre-sales person or something like that. So yeah, that can help you.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think the one thing that is always important for folks to realize, again, the App Exchange is a Salesforce marketplace. You don't get to jump on there for free. You do, as an ISV, you have to go through certain steps to be listed on there, to be credible. There's testing that Salesforce does to a certain degree of your app to make sure that it's working the right way. They'll go all the way down to the point of, is this Lightning ready? Is this Classic only? Pieces like that. So, we appreciate Salesforce putting their best foot forward too, to make sure that what goes on the App Exchange is high quality, high value. It's not a totally free marketplace, almost like we might sit here with our iPhone and download an app that can come from anywhere. It is typically pressure tested and make sure that, it's going to be the right solution for our customers. When we think about the research we've done, we've looked at the backstory to the App Exchange. Really, hopefully for the takeaway for a lot of folks that are joining this call, what are some of the go-to tips and tricks that you think of to get the most out of your Salesforce tech, especially as it evolves into the ISV market and evaluating? I'd love to hear what tips you have for our listeners.
Yeah, sure. I mean, number one, we've mentioned it a few times, but is the free trials. Definitely take advantage of them. Something else that I think that some people might know, might not know, but there's a lot of these ISVs are now offering certifications. That this is kind of like formalized training in whatever domain they're in, whether it's DocGen or e-signature or form building, or there's so many DevOps companies now offering a bit of certification, and they're obviously doing this as you know, slightly a bit of promotion, but also thought leadership and get people trained up on these topics. But if you're not sure of how a certain app can increase productivity in your org and automate things further, you know, DevOps for someone that's not in the DevOps world can be a bit intimidating. But now there's step-through guides, really nice training portals that are on these ISVs websites, and you know, you can take these and get skilled up on that particular app, and that's not only good for the end user you work with or your clients you work with, but also yourself as a professional, because if you're looking for a job and someone is really committed to DocGen or contract lifecycle management and you're trained up on that and have implemented that before, you know, you're going to stand out. So yeah, that's one thing.
Absolutely. Well, and we've all known certifications, the Salesforce certification programs for a while, right? We've seen just that grow and expand. I remember right when I started dipping my toe into the Salesforce ecosystem, I think there was 5 certifications you could get. Now we obviously don't have enough fingers and toes to count the number of different ways you can flex your Salesforce muscle, but a lot of these ISVs have this as well. And, you know, I think that speaks to one thing and one thing only: the pace of innovation that is going through with a lot of these companies is just so fast. And candidly, that pace of innovation is exceeding some of the pace in which we can actually learn and ingest and figure out how to become masters of these pieces of technology. All that being said, to your point, go through the certification programs with a lot of these ISVs. That's exactly what they're there for. And really wear it as a badge of honor. Again, you're going to likely be moving on to the next best job some point in your career, and knowing that you have the background in one of these ISVs, you've gone through the certification program, put that add it to the CV, wear it proud as a badge of honor. As yes, I'm a master of this. It will help you find, you know, that next step in your career, becoming, you know, ultimately in your Salesforce journey, becoming a master of your domain. One thing that we want to make sure, obviously, we talk about tips and tricks of purchasing and evaluating, but there's always a little bit of blind spots in anything that we do. When you think of some of the blind spots, you know, we'll help our users and help our listeners make sure that they know what to expect and ask some of the even tougher questions. What blind spots do you think of when you're evaluating ISVs and starting to work with them?
Yeah, I think there is a few, kind of like when you're evaluating any software product, you know, you're going to make sure you kind of go through a checklist of things and make sure everything's kosher. But I would say implementation costs can be quite a big one. Some apps are going to have absolutely no implementation cost, and it's going to take a few minutes to set up. And you're going to get some which will cost tens of thousands, perhaps 6-figure plus, over the course of months and months and months. And it's just good to be aware of which type of one that is. And of course, the ISV is not going to hide that from you, and it's going to be pretty transparent. But you know, you might need to involve an SI if the ISV doesn't implement themselves, or it could just be a job for yourself with you can learn with training, but it might take up a big portion of your time. You know, DocGen or e-signature, I think, you know, pretty much anyone can learn, but it is, you know, just understanding the tool you're using and how to implement it. So that's a good one to get a grasp of quite early on in your journey when you're selecting an ISV.
Absolutely. I think level of effort is going to change for everyone. If you've got a team of 7 or 10 people on your team, and yeah, you're going to download this new app, you're going to test it in your sandbox, you're going to push to production, could take a week. If you're a smaller team, you're a little bit more strapped for time, and you're juggling a lot of balls in the air, that could take a month or 2 months. And so it's just important to understand, yes, we all know what that pie in the sky looks like. We can read enough material online, but sometimes you just truly have to ask. And that would be a little bit of one of the tips that I would say. Remember that, you know, there's a company behind this. While it's sitting on a marketplace and they make it very easy to move forward with purchasing the app, get it installed, there's a lot of help articles everywhere, there's still some humans behind the screens that are willing to help, and just don't take that for granted, but also put them to work. And this is probably where I would say the one differentiator between the Salesforce App Exchange and the ISVs that are behind that, compared to, you know, an iPhone app that you might quickly download. best guess is if you download, Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, you're probably not going to be able to pick up the phone and try to get support on the line to help you figure out, hey, I'm stuck getting logged in. What am I do? That's different with the ISVs. Everybody's actually very much willing and excited to help. You just have to be sure to ask the question and be sure to put your foot out there like, hey, I need help getting this installed. I'm running into this issue. I can guarantee you every ISV that I've worked with is more than willing to jump on the phone, email, Zoom, et cetera, to help get that resolved. So I know one thing that we both talked about as we were kind of prepping for this is API call limits. That's another little bit of a blind spot. What's your take on how apps work with that?
Yeah, I think limits in general. So API limits is a great one. Obviously, anything coming into your org is gonna potentially hit your API limits, and that's a pretty hard limit as far as I remember. So when you hit that, Salesforce will stop any API calls coming into your org, but also other limits as well. They're depending on if it's a managed, if it's an unmanaged package, does depend on whether it will increase your limits for fields per object or total objects or something like that. But that's always good to get a handle on, because some apps have hundreds of objects and potentially hundreds or thousands of fields. So it's a good idea to see how that's going to affect your org.
Absolutely, yeah. You have to do your diligence as a buyer to make sure that truly fits for you and your org. I'll tell you this, I think you and I've joked about before. I've been stuck in an API purgatory. It's not a fun place to be. I've hit my limits, and it truly does. It stops the wheel from spinning with all of your other Connect apps that are starting to use, that are leveraging the Force.com platform. So it's just very, very important to always ask that question. And it's simple. Hey, ISV, on average, what's the number of API calls per org that you typically see? And of course, they're going to say every customer is different, depends on the massive org, how many users. Rough estimates, are we talking 5,000 API calls or 50,000 per day? Just need to make sure that I have the right limits in place. And obviously you can work with your Salesforce rep if that needs to get increased. The last tip that I would always say, and this is coming from a guy who has a software company, be sure to talk about pricing. It sounds silly. No vendor should ever hide pricing from you, regardless of what the business model is. You should be working with folks that you trust and that that pricing is extremely transparent. You know what the different levers are. The one blind spot that I would say, even when you're looking at on the app exchange, is sometimes that can be difficult to articulate a full pricing model just in a few words or a few bullet points. And so, always ask the right questions. Is this per user pricing? Is this per org pricing? Is this an annual agreement? You should be thinking about these things as you're buying software, no matter what, but it especially goes into working with ISVs as well. And again, most of the companies out there, the ones especially that I've worked with in the past, are top notch. They're willing to talk about that all day, every day. Sometimes you just have to ask. So man, time flies when you're having fun. I know we're getting close to the top of time. Ben, I'll just ask kind of openly, when you really think and you zoom out of what we've looked at, and we've talked about the progression of the ISV and the marketplace and the app exchange, I'll let you kind of get your wand out and rub the crystal ball a little bit. If you were to think into the future, where does the ISV world go and the market go? What's the first thing that comes to mind, and what excites you the most about seeing this evolution of ISVs over the years?
Yeah, great question. And apologies if you can hear my cat; they're being a bit whiny, but working from home.
Totally
so yeah, I think, as I said, I think it's one of the most interesting times to be an ISV or working with ISV. The size of ISVs now. Some of the big ones are approaching 1,000+ employees, which just shows you how how important they are in the Salesforce ecosystem and the value they provide to thousands of Salesforce customers, and also the money flowing into the investment from VCs at the moment flowing into Salesforce is really exciting. So I think the innovation we're going to see in the next few years is only going to increase. I think DevOps is kind of the obvious space to watch, just because there has been so little innovation with DevOps kind of not the past few years, but kind of like pre-2014, even though the whole world was implementing DevOps in their processes, and Salesforce was kind of just starting. So I think that's going to be the one to watch at the moment.
I agree. I mean, obviously, it's the world that we live and operate in every day. Again, I think what most excites me about the entire ISV and App Exchange marketplace and everything is that we are making one, we're making lives easier for our end users. That should be everybody's pie in the sky. That should be everybody's mission or thesis at some point along it. But we're making it easier for them to even find us now. And we're making it easier for folks to evaluate and to have very strong conversations and vet it out. I think the thing that I'll always tell users, and as we wrap here, I'll say it 100 times over, and I'm sure you'll agree, leverage the resources at hand to make sure you're making the well-informed decisions. Obviously, your website has more reviews and such thought leadership of the next best apps that are coming out. So always check it. I still check it every single day. If we're looking through purchasing something, I'm jumping on Salesforce Bin and seeing if we've got a review of it. But you should be leveraging all the tools at your disposal. Use WizOps. Obviously, there's a lot of conversations in our community about purchasing the best software, when's the right time, who as a similar company might be using it. And so again, you as a user and a community have an obligation to help each other out, but also use all the tools at your disposal. So like I said, I know we're coming up on the top of time. It's a busy week this week as we have Dreamforce going, and Ben, I know we'll wrap up, but can't thank you enough for taking the time to drop some knowledge on us for ISVs and how we can better leverage them. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on again. And yeah, I hope everyone watching this is having a great Dreamforce. I'm really looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Ben, have a great week. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Cheers, Brad. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.